The Great Hall of the Galaxy Council was the largest room ever built. It floated in space on Station Prime, a massive structure at the center of known civilization. Representatives from 347 species filled the curved seats that rose from the floor to the ceiling. The room was alive with noise. Diplomats talked, argued, and made deals in dozens of languages. Translators worked hard to keep up. High Speaker Morath stood at the central platform. He was a Tellurian, tall and thin, with pale blue skin and 4 arms. He had led the council for 60 years. In all that time, he had never seen the human seats empty. The seats were in a back corner, far from the important species. Humans had only been part of galactic society for 200 years. That was nothing. Some species had been members for 10,000 years. Humans were new. They were small. They were useful for certain jobs, but they were not important. "Where are the humans?" asked Counselor Vrith. She was a Lorathi, covered in green scales, with sharp teeth and quick eyes. She ran the Trade Commission and noticed everything that might affect business. Morath looked at the empty seats. "Perhaps they are late." "Humans are never late," Vreth said. "They are obsessed with time. They have so little of it." This was true. Humans lived only 80 or 90 years. Most species lived for centuries. Some lived for thousands of years. Humans rushed through everything because death was always close behind them. Before Morath could respond, every screen in the hall lit up at once. The face of a human woman appeared. She had black hair pulled back tight and dark eyes that showed no emotion. The translator identified her as Ambassador Kim Yuna, senior representative of Earth. "Members of the Galaxy Council," she said. Her voice was calm and steady. "I am delivering formal notice that humanity is withdrawing from all galactic treaties, trade agreements, and diplomatic relations. This withdrawal is effective immediately." The hall went silent. 347 species stared at the screens. "All human personnel will leave Council space within 30 days. All human technology licensed to Council species will be recalled. All joint projects are cancelled. Earth's borders are now closed." Ambassador Kim paused. "Do not send ships. Do not send messages. Humanity has nothing further to say." The screens went dark. For a moment, nobody spoke. Then, the hall exploded with noise. Diplomats shouted. Some laughed. Others demanded explanations. Morath raised his forearms for silence. It took several minutes to restore order. "This is clearly a negotiation tactic," he said. "Humans are emotional. They have probably taken offense at some minor issue. We will send a delegation to discuss their concerns." Counselor Vreth was not so sure. She had worked with humans for decades. They were strange creatures. They smiled when they were angry. They laughed when they were scared. But they did not bluff. When a human said something, they meant it. "High Speaker," she said. Morath looked at her with annoyance. "The humans are a minor species. They have no fleet worth mentioning. Their worlds are few. What can they possibly do to us?" Vreth did not have an answer. But she felt cold inside. The first problems appeared within a week. Trade ships began reporting navigation failures. The routes between stars were complex. Ships needed constant guidance to avoid gravity wells, radiation storms, and other dangers. For 50 years, humans had operated most of the navigation beacons. They were good at the work. They were cheap. They did not complain about lonely postings in deep space. Now those beacons were going dark, one by one. Ships that left port found themselves lost. Then the manufacturing problem started. Humans had invented a small device called an FTL regulator. It made faster than light engines, safer, and more efficient. Humans had sold these devices across the galaxy at low prices. Almost every ship used them. Nobody had thought to learn how they worked. Why bother? Humans would always make more, but humans were not making more, and the regulators wore out every few years. Counselor Vreth called an emergency meeting of the Trade Commission. Representatives from the major commercial species attended. The Kaori merchant guilds sent their senior minister, A fat creature named Selax who wore rings on every finger. "This is a disaster," Selax said. "Half my fleet will be grounded within 6 months. We cannot move goods. We cannot fulfill contracts. We will lose everything. Can we not build the regulators ourselves?" someone asked. "We have tried," Vrith said. "Our engineers cannot understand the design. Humans used manufacturing techniques we have never seen. Then we forced them to give us the plans." Vreth shook her head. "With what army?" "Every species that tried to threaten humans learned the same lesson. They do not have a large fleet because they do not need one. Their defensive technology is beyond anything we can match." "Then what do we do?" Nobody had an answer. The worst news came at the end of the month. Morath was in his private office when his assistant brought a classified report. The High Speaker read it 3 times to make sure he understood. For 200 years, the galaxy had relied on a network of emergency beacons. If a ship was in danger, it sent a distress signal. The beacons carried that signal across the stars. Rescue ships would come. Millions of lives had been saved. The report said that humans had been maintaining 87% of those beacons. The work was dangerous. The beacons were in remote places. Other species did not want the job. Humans took it because they needed the money. Now the beacons were shutting down. Morath felt real fear for the first time. He pressed a button on his desk. "Get me Counselor Vrith," he said. When she arrived, he showed her the report. She read it in silence. "How did we not know this?" Morath asked. "Because we never asked," Vreth said. "We gave humans the jobs nobody else wanted. We let them work in the dark, and the cold, and the danger. We paid them little, and thanked them less. We never thought about what would happen if they stopped. We must bring them back. How? We treated them like servants for 2 centuries. We laughed at their short lives. We called them primitive. Every time they made something brilliant, we took credit for it ourselves." Morath stood at his window and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, Earth was closing its doors. Humans were packing their bags and going home. And they were taking everything they had built with them. "They cannot do this," he said. "They need us." Vreth came to stand beside him. "High Speaker, I do not think they do. I think we need them. And I think they have known it for a very long time." Morath did not answer. He did not want to believe it. Humans were a minor species. They lived short lives and died quickly. They were clever with their hands, but simple in their thinking. But as he watched the stars, he began to wonder if the galaxy had made a terrible mistake. And he began to wonder if it was already too late to fix it. In her office on Earth, Ambassador Kim Yuna removed her formal uniform and put on simple clothes. She poured herself a drink and sat by the window. Outside, the sun was setting over the city. Children played in the streets. Life went on. Her assistant came in. "The council is trying to send messages. They want to negotiate." Delete them," Kim said. "All of them?" "All of them. We have nothing to say." The assistant left. Kim drank her tea and watched the sunset. 200 years of insults. 200 years of being treated like lesser creatures. 200 years of giving the galaxy their best and getting nothing but contempt in return. Now it was over. Humanity was going home, and the galaxy would learn what it had lost. Kim smiled and finished her tea. 3 months passed. The galaxy was falling apart. Dr. Lee Minji stood in the control room of Nexus Relay Station and watched her team pack the last equipment. The station had been their home for 15 years. It sat at the meeting point of 6 major trade routes. Every day, thousands of ships had passed through, using the station's systems to navigate safely. Now it was empty. The screens were dark. The halls were silent. In 2 hours, the last shuttle would take them home to Earth. "It feels strange," said her assistant, a young man named Cho Wubin. "We built this place. We made it work, and now we just leave it. They can run it themselves," Minji said. "They always said they could," Wubin laughed. It was not a happy sound. They cannot even find the main power switch. I had 6 calls yesterday from Lorathi engineers asking basic questions. They never learned anything. They just let us do all the work. Minji nodded. This was the truth that the galaxy was now discovering. For 200 years, humans had done the jobs that nobody else wanted. They had maintained the systems that everyone used. They had solved the problems that everyone ignored. And they had done it quietly, without praise or thanks, because they needed the work and the money. But they had also been learning, watching, planning. Time to go, Minji said. They walked to the shuttle bay. The doors closed behind them. Nexus Relay Station went dark, for the first time, in 50 years. Across the galaxy, similar scenes were happening. Human workers left their posts on space stations, mining colonies, research labs, and trading hubs. They took their tools and their knowledge with them. They left behind empty rooms and confused aliens who suddenly realized they did not know how anything worked. The Kaori merchant guilds were the first to feel real pain. Trade Minister Selax sat in his office on the Kaori homeworld and looked at the reports. His people were the richest species in the galaxy. They owned thousands of ships. They moved goods between 100 worlds. They had built their empire on trade. Now that empire was crumbling. How many ships are grounded? He asked. 40%, his assistant said. The FTL regulators are failing. We cannot get replacements. What about our own engineers? They have tried to copy the human design. They cannot do it. The humans used manufacturing methods we do not understand. Our copies explode. End quote. Selax put his head in his hands. The humans had sold those regulators so cheaply. Everyone had bought them. Nobody had asked questions. Why would they? Humans were primitive. Humans lived short lives and died fast. They could not possibly have technology that the great species could not match. But they did. And now they were gone. The medical crisis was even worse. On the planet Vorath, the central hospital was running out of medicine. Not all medicine. Just the important ones. The ones that cured the worst diseases. Dr. Celis, the hospital director, called an emergency meeting. We have 30 days of supply left, she told her staff. After that, patients will start dying. Can we not make more? Someone asked. The medicines were developed by human researchers. They shared the formulas with us years ago. But the formulas require certain processes that we do not understand. We followed their instructions without learning the science behind them. Then we contact the humans and ask for help. Earth's borders are closed. They are not responding to anyone. Silence filled the room. On the beds around them, patients waited for treatment. Many of them would not survive the month. Dr. Celis thought about the human researchers she had worked with over the years. They had been so eager to help. They had shared their discoveries freely. And how had they been treated? Thanks for watching. And Aram Spen. They were given small offices in the basement. They were paid less than other scientists. When they won awards, their names were often left off the announcements. Now they were gone. And they had taken their knowledge with them. High Speaker Morath knew he had to do something. The council was losing control. Species were blaming each other. Old conflicts were starting again. Every day brought new reports of systems failing and shortages growing. He decided to send a delegation to Earth. Councillor Vreth agreed to lead it. She took a small ship and a crew of diplomats from 6 species. They traveled for 2 weeks to reach Earth's border. They were met by a human fleet. It was not large. Only 20 ships. But they moved with perfect coordination, appearing from nowhere to surround the council vessel. Their technology was smooth and advanced. No weapons were visible, but Vreth felt the power in those ships. A face appeared on her screen. It was a human male, with gray hair and a calm expression. The translator identified him as Admiral Choi Tae-wan, commander of Earth's Home Defense Fleet. Councillor Vreth, he said politely. We have come to negotiate, Vreth said. The Council wishes to discuss humanity's concerns. We are prepared to make significant offers. Admiral Choi nodded slowly. I understand. However, I must inform you that Earth's borders are closed. We are not receiving delegations at this time. Admiral, please. The situation is urgent. Systems are failing across the galaxy. People are suffering. We need human help. I am sorry to hear that, Choi said. His voice was still polite, but there was something hard underneath. However, humanity has made its position clear. We have nothing further to discuss with the Council. Vreth leaned forward. There must be something you want. Name your price. The Council will pay it. Choi looked at her for a long moment. Counselor, for 200 years, the galaxy treated my people like servants. You took our work and gave us nothing. You mocked us for dying young. You stole our inventions and pretended they were yours. And now that we are gone, you offer to pay us? He shook his head. We do not want your money. We do not want your apologies. We want to be left alone. Please return to Council space and do not come back. The screen went dark. The human ships did not move. They simply waited. Vreth ordered her ship to turn around. On the journey home, she thought about what had happened. The humans were not angry. They were not threatening. They were simply finished. They had given the galaxy 200 years of their work, their ideas, and their lives. They had received contempt in return. And now, they were done. It was not revenge. It was just the end. Back on Station Prime, she delivered her report to the Council. They refused to negotiate? Morath asked. They refused to talk, Vreth said. High Speaker, you do not understand. They are not waiting for a better offer. They are not playing games. They have made a decision, and they will not change it. Everyone has a price. Not everyone. Not them. We had 200 years to treat them fairly. We chose not to. Now they are building something new, far from us, and they do not need us anymore. Morath stared at her. That is impossible. They are a minor species. Vreth almost laughed. High Speaker, we told ourselves that story for so long that we believed it. But it was never true. They were never minor. We just refused to see what they were. Sarah. Also, 1-1. She placed a data chip on his desk. Our intelligence service compiled this. The humans have been planning their withdrawal for over 50 years. They knew this day would come. They prepared for it. Every system they maintained, every technology they sold, every job they took. They knew we would become dependent on them. And they knew we would not notice until it was too late. Morath picked up the chip. His hands were shaking. 50 years? At least. Maybe longer. The humans think ahead, High Speaker. They plan. And they never forget how they were treated. She walked to the door and stopped. We called them primitive because they lived short lives. But perhaps that was their strength. They knew they did not have time to waste. So they spent every moment building, learning, and preparing. And now they are ready, and we are not. She left him alone with the data chip and his fear. In orbit around Earth, Admiral Choi watched the Council ship disappear into the distance. His aide came to stand beside him. Do you think they will come back? She asked. Yes, Choi said. They will come back with more offers. Then they will come back with threats. Then they will come back with weapons. And then? Choi smiled. It was a small, tired smile. Then they will learn what we can really do. And they will finally understand that they should have treated us better when they had the chance. He turned away from the window. Set course for home. We have work to do. 6 months after the withdrawal, the Galaxy Council was breaking apart. The great hall that had once been full of noise and activity was now half empty. Many species had stopped sending representatives. They were too busy dealing with their own problems. Trade had collapsed. Communication networks were failing. Old enemies were looking at each other with suspicion. High Speaker Morath stood at the central platform and looked at the empty seats. Every day, there were fewer. Every day, the council lost more power. He had led this body for 60 years. Now, he was watching it die. The Tellurians blamed the Lorathi for driving the humans away. The Lorathi blamed the Kaori. The Kaori blamed everyone. Fights broke out in the halls. Diplomats who had worked together for centuries now refused to speak. And through it all, Earth remained silent. On Earth, Commander Yoon Jisoo sat in her office at the Intelligence Division. She was a small woman, with short gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. For 30 years she had gathered information about the galaxy. She knew every secret, every lie, every betrayal. Now she was deciding what to share. "The council is collapsing faster than we expected," said her aide, a young man named Kang Ji-hoon. "Some analysts think it will break apart completely within a year." Jisoo nodded. That was always possible. The council was held together by trade and mutual benefit. Without those, they have nothing in common except old hatreds. Should we be concerned? If they fall into war, it could spread to our borders. It could, but we are not responsible for their choices. We gave them 200 years of peace and prosperity. They gave us contempt. What they do now is their own affair. She looked at the file on her desk. It was thick and heavy. Inside was every record of how humans had been treated since joining galactic society. Every insult, every theft, every broken promise, every death that could have been prevented if anyone had cared. "Send this to the Silvani," she said. Ji-hoon looked surprised. "The whole file?" "The whole file. The Silvani were always fair to us. They deserve to know the truth. Let them decide what to do with it." The Silvani collective was different from other species. They were quiet and thoughtful. They lived for hundreds of years and did not rush into anything. They had always treated humans with respect. When human scientists made discoveries, the Silvani gave them credit. When human workers were cheated, the Silvani spoke up. Ambassador Keithis received the file on his homeworld. He read it slowly, page by page. It took him 3 days. When he was finished, he sat in silence for a long time. He had known that humans were treated badly. Everyone knew. But this file showed the full truth. 200 years of systematic exploitation. Human inventions stolen and patented by other species. Human workers killed in dangerous jobs that others refused to do. Human colonies taxed heavily while receiving no services. Human representatives mocked and ignored in council meetings. And through it all, humans had kept working. They had kept sharing. They had kept hoping that things would get better. But things had not gotten better. And finally, the humans had stopped hoping. Keithis requested permission to visit Earth. To his surprise, it was granted. He traveled alone in a small ship. At the border, human vessels escorted him to the planet. He was taken to the capital city and brought to meet President Bae Sumin. She was younger than he expected. Humans aged quickly, but she looked strong and healthy. Her hair was black, and her eyes were sharp. She wore simple clothes, with no decorations. "Ambassador Keithis," she said, "thank you for coming. Please sit." They sat in a simple room with large windows. Outside, the city spread to the horizon. Flying vehicles moved between tall buildings. Parks and gardens filled the spaces between. It was beautiful and alive. "I read the file," Keithis said. "I knew things were bad. I did not know they were this bad." Sumin nodded. Most species did not. They did not want to know. It was easier to take what we offered and ignore how we were treated. "Why did you share it with us?" "Because you were different. Your people always treated us fairly. We wanted you to understand why we left." Keithis looked out the window. "The council is destroying itself. Without your technology and your work, everything is failing. They are blaming each other. Soon, they will start fighting. I know. Does that not concern you? Suman was quiet for a moment. Ambassador, when I was young, my grandmother told me a story. She worked on a space station far from home. The station was owned by the Kaori. They paid her almost nothing. They gave her the most dangerous jobs. When she got sick from radiation, they refused to treat her. She had to fly home and spend her own money on medicine. She looked at Kethis with steady eyes. She died when I was 10. The radiation had done too much damage. She was 42 years old. The Kaori sent a message saying they were sorry for the inconvenience. Quote, we seen Ark. I seen Ark side. Kethis did not know what to say. I have 1,000 stories like that, Suman continued. Every human family does. We came to the galaxy with hope. We wanted to learn and grow and be part of something bigger. And the galaxy used us up and threw us away. I am sorry. I know you are. The Silvani always were. But sorry is not enough anymore. We do not want apologies. We do not want money. We do not want revenge. We just want to be left alone to build something better. And if the Council falls into war, then they will learn the same lesson they taught us. Actions have consequences. Kethis stayed on Earth for a week. He walked through cities and towns. He talked to ordinary people. He saw what humans were building. It was impressive. They were not just surviving, they were thriving. New technologies were everywhere. New art, new music, new ideas. Freed from the burden of serving the galaxy, humans were creating things he had never imagined. And they were not alone. Other species had joined them. Species that had also been treated badly by the Council. They were building a new society together, based on equality and mutual respect. Before he left, Kethis met with President Suman one more time. What would it take for humanity to consider contact with the galaxy again? He asked. Suman thought about it. The Council would have to acknowledge what it did. Not just say sorry, but really understand. They would have to change the way they treat younger species. They would have to prove, through actions, that they have learned. That is a lot to ask. It is. And I do not expect it to happen. Most species would rather die than admit they were wrong. So we will build our own future. And the galaxy can build its own. Perhaps someday our grandchildren will meet, and things will be different. Kethis nodded slowly. I will. Take your words back to the Council. I will tell them the truth. They will not want to hear it. No, but they need to hear it. And perhaps, if they are very lucky, they will listen. He returned to Station Prime and requested an audience with the full Council. Most of the seats were empty, but enough species came to hear him. He told them everything. The file. The 200 years of exploitation. The stolen inventions, and the dead workers, and the broken promises. He told them about the new civilization that humans were building without them. And he told them what it would take to have any chance of fixing things. When he finished, the hall was silent. Then the shouting began. Some species were angry at the humans. Some were angry at each other. Some were angry at Kethis for telling them truths they did not want to hear. The meeting dissolved into chaos. High Speaker Morath sat at the center and said nothing. He just looked at the empty seats and the fighting diplomats and the reports of failing systems across the galaxy. He thought about his 60 years leading the Council. He thought about all the times humans had come to him with complaints, and he had sent them away. He thought about the jokes he had made about their short lives and their strange customs. He thought about the look in President Suman's eyes when she talked about her grandmother dying at 42. And for the first time, he began to understand what they had done. The Council had not just lost a useful species. They had betrayed people who had trusted them. They had taken everything and given nothing. They had laughed at creatures who were building wonders, and they had ignored the suffering they caused. And now the bill had come due. Morath stood up slowly. We have made mistakes, he said. His voice was tired. terrible mistakes. And now we must decide if we are willing to face them. He looked around at the remaining representatives. The humans have given us their terms. Not for rejoining us, just for talking to us. We must acknowledge what we did. We must change how we treat others. We must prove through actions that we are worthy of trust. He paused. I do not know if we can do these things. I do not know if we are brave enough or honest enough. But I know that if we do not try, we deserve to fall. We deserve everything that is happening to us. He walked out of the hall. Behind him, the council sat in silence and wondered if it was too late to save themselves. 9 months after the withdrawal, fear ruled the galaxy. The communication networks were dying. Species that had talked every day for thousands of years now waited weeks for messages. Ships were afraid to leave port because navigation beacons were dark. The emergency rescue system had almost completely failed. When vessels sent distress calls, nobody heard them. Director Han Unji stood on the bridge of the New Dawn, humanity's largest exploration ship, and looked at the stars ahead. These stars had no names in galactic records. No council species had ever visited them. This was the frontier, and it belonged to humanity now. How many ships today? She asked. 12, said her aide, a young woman named Shin Nari. 6 cargo vessels. 4 research ships. 2 colony transports. Good. And the settlement on Kepler 7? Population has reached 50,000. Farming and manufacturing are ahead of schedule. They expect to be self-sufficient within 2 years. Yunji allowed herself a small smile. This was what humanity did best. They built things. They solved problems. They worked hard and did not give up. For 200 years, the galaxy had used these gifts and given nothing in return. Now, humanity was using them for itself. Behind them, Earth was safe and growing stronger. Ahead of them, a dozen new worlds were being settled. Humans were no longer servants of the galaxy. They were builders of their own future. Director, Nari said suddenly. We are receiving a message from the Border Patrol. A large fleet is approaching Earth's space. Yunji felt cold. How large? 300 ships. Military vessels. Council flags from at least 12 species. So it had come to this. The Council had decided to take by force what it could not get by asking. She opened a channel to Earth. President Bae Sumin was waiting. Her face was calm, but her eyes were hard. I have seen the reports, Sumin said. Admiral Choi is moving our defense fleet into position. Will we fight? Only if we must. But I do not think we will need to. Yi understood. Humanity had spent 200 years learning everything the galaxy knew. They had studied every species, every technology, every weakness. And they had built defenses that nobody else could imagine. The Council fleet crossed the border and moved toward Earth. They were met by only 50 human ships. Admiral Choi Tae-wan watched them come. His ships were small and plain-looking. They had no visible weapons. To the Council fleet, they looked like toys. The Council commander sent a message. He was a Tellurian general named Vorath, a famous warrior who had won many battles. Human vessels, Vorath said. You are ordered to stand aside. The Council has authorized us to secure Earth and restore galactic stability. You will not be harmed if you cooperate. Choi looked at the message and said nothing for a long moment. General Vorath, he replied, you are in violation of Earth's sovereign space. You have 30 seconds to turn around and leave. This is your only warning. Vorath laughed. The sound carried across the communication channel. 50 ships against 300? You are brave. Human. But you are also foolish. We have studied your defenses. Your technology is good, but it cannot match our numbers. Surrender now and you will be treated well. Choi cut the channel. All ships, he said quietly. Execute Protocol 7. The human vessels spread out in a wide pattern. They did not fire weapons. They did not raise shields. They simply began to glow with a soft blue light. Then the Council fleet stopped. Every single ship, all 300 of them, went dead. Engines shut down. Weapons went offline. Life support switched to emergency mode. The vessels drifted helplessly in space. On the flagship, General Vorath stared at his dark control panels. Nothing worked. His ship was completely powerless. Choi's face appeared on the emergency backup screen. "General," he said, "your fleet has been disabled. Your crews are not harmed. Life support will continue for 72 hours, which is enough time for rescue ships to reach you." He paused. "We told you to leave us alone. We told you we did not want to fight. We told you that we just wanted peace. But you came anyway, with warships, to take what you could not earn. So now you will float here in the dark and think about what you have done." He leaned forward. "Go home, General. Tell the Council that if they send another fleet, we will not be so gentle. This is humanity's final warning." The screen went dark. Vorath sat in his command chair and felt something he had never felt before in his long military career. Shame. The news of the failed invasion spread across the galaxy within hours. 300 warships, the largest fleet assembled in centuries, defeated without a single shot fired. The humans had won without killing anyone. They had simply turned everything off and walked away. The Council was in chaos. Some species demanded another attack with more ships. Others wanted to surrender completely and beg for mercy. Most just sat in shock and tried to understand what had happened. High Speaker Morath called an emergency meeting. "How is this possible?" demanded a Kaori representative. "They had 50 ships. We had 300. How did they defeat us?" "Because we never understood them," Morath said quietly. "We thought they were weak because they lived short lives. We thought they were primitive because they were young. We never saw what was right in front of us." He stood up and walked to the window. "For 200 years, humans worked in every part of our civilization. They maintained our systems, built our technology, healed our sick. They saw everything. They learned everything. And they used that knowledge to protect themselves from us." He turned back to the Council. "They were never weak. They were never primitive. They were building something we could not imagine, right under our eyes, and we were too arrogant to notice." Councillor Vreth spoke up. "Then what do we do? If we cannot defeat them, and they will not talk to us, what is left?" Morath was silent for a long moment. "We do what they asked," he said finally. "We acknowledge what we did. We apologize. We change." The hall erupted in noise. Some species shouted in agreement. Others shouted in anger. The idea of apologizing to a younger species, of admitting that they had been wrong, was too much for many to accept. But Morath kept talking. "I have led this council for 60 years. In that time, I have made many mistakes. The greatest was how we treated the humans. We used them. We mocked them. We stole from them. And we told ourselves that it was acceptable because they were lesser than us." He looked around the hall. "But they were never lesser. They were just different. They lived fast because they had to. They built quickly because time was short. They shared freely because that was their nature. And we punished them for every one of those virtues." He raised his hands. "Enough. It is time to be honest. It is time to face what we have done and try to make it right. Not because we are afraid of their technology, but because it is the right thing to do. Because we were wrong, and they deserved better." The vote was called. It took 3 days of debate. Species argued and fought and threatened to leave. But in the end, enough of them voted yes. The Council would formally apologize to humanity. They would acknowledge 2 centuries of exploitation. They would commit to changing how they treated younger species. It was not unanimous. Many voted against. They would never accept that humans were their equals. They would hold on to their pride until the end. But it was enough. Councillor Vreth was chosen to deliver the apology. She would travel to Earth's border and present the Council's words to whoever would listen. She did not know if it would work. She did not know if humanity would care about words after everything that had been done, but she knew she had to try. As her ship left Station Prime, she looked back at the great structure floating in space. It had been the center of galactic civilization for 10,000 years. Now it looked small and tired. Ahead of her, somewhere beyond the stars, humanity was building something new, something better, and the galaxy would have to decide if it wanted to be part of that future, or if it would be left behind. Vreeth turned away from the window and set her course. It was time to see if sorry was enough. 1 year after the withdrawal, Counselor Vreeth arrived at Earth's border. Her ship was small and carried no weapons. She came alone, except for a crew of 3. The Great Council fleet had failed. Now a single diplomat would try what 300 warships could not do. Human vessels appeared within minutes. They escorted her through the border and toward Earth. She watched through the window as the blue planet grew larger. It was beautiful. Green lands, white clouds, and deep blue oceans. This small world had produced a species that had shaken the galaxy. She was taken to a government building in the capital city. The room was simple: plain walls, wooden furniture, and large windows that looked out on the city. Ambassador Kim Yuna was waiting for her. Vreeth had met Kim once, years ago, at a council function. The human woman had been polite, but quiet. "Ambassador Kim," Vreeth said, "thank you for seeing me." Kim nodded. "You have something from the council?" "I do." Vreeth placed a data chip on the table. This contains the council's formal apology to humanity. It acknowledges 200 years of exploitation and mistreatment. It includes commitments to reform how younger species are treated. It offers compensation for damages. Kim did not touch the chip. "And what do you want in return?" "The Council hopes that humanity will consider reopening diplomatic relations. Not immediately, not fully, just a beginning. A chance to prove that we have changed." Kim was silent for a long moment. "Counselor Vreeth, do you know how many humans died working for the galaxy?" Vreeth shook her head. "Neither do we. The records were not kept. Human workers were cheap and easy to replace. When they died in accidents, or from radiation, or from diseases that could have been treated, nobody counted. They were just numbers." She picked up the data chip and looked at it. "This chip contains words, promises, commitments. Do you know how many promises the Council made to us over 200 years? Do you know how many were kept?" Vreeth did not answer. She knew the answer was very few. "My government will review this," Kim said. "We will give you a response. But I will tell you now, Counselor, that words are not enough. They will never be enough. If the galaxy wants to rebuild trust with humanity, it will have to show us through actions. It will have to prove, year after year, that it has truly changed. And if we do, then perhaps someday things will be different. But it will take a long time, generations, and it may never happen at all." No, no. Vreeth felt the weight of those words. 200 years of damage would not be fixed with one apology. Maybe it would never be fixed. "I understand," she said. "We will do whatever humanity requires. We will wait as long as necessary." Kim nodded slowly. For the first time, something like warmth appeared in her eyes. "That is a start, Counselor. That is a start." The Council's apology was reviewed by Earth's government for 2 weeks. Every word was examined. Every promise was tested. Then, President Bae Sumin called a meeting of the senior leaders. "What do we think?" she asked. Admiral Choi spoke first. "The military threat is gone. They cannot touch us, and they know it. This apology is genuine in the sense that they have no other choice." Commander Yoon Jisoo went next. "The intelligence suggests that about 60% of Council species sincerely want change. The other 40% are going along because they are afraid. That ratio may shift over time." Director Han Eunji added her view. "The frontier colonies are thriving. We do not need the Council for survival. We can build our own civilization without them. Suman listened to all of them. Then she looked at Ambassador Kim. Yuna, you met with Vreth. What did you see? Kim thought carefully before answering. I saw someone who understood what the council did wrong. Not all of them understand, but some do. Vreth is one of them. Is that enough? No. But it is something. And if we close the door completely, we guarantee that nothing will ever change. If we leave it open a little, change is at least possible. Suman stood and walked to the window. Outside, the sun was setting. The sky was red and gold. 200 years ago, my ancestors joined the galaxy with hope. They wanted to learn and grow and be part of something larger. The galaxy took that hope and crushed it. She turned back to the room. I do not want to make the same mistake. I do not want to close our hearts because we were hurt. But I also will not let my people be used again. So we will do something in between. End anyone. She announced her decision the next day. Humanity would not rejoin the council. The old relationship was over forever. But humanity would open limited diplomatic and trade relations with individual species that met certain conditions. Those conditions were strict: full equality, complete transparency, mutual benefit. Any species that cheated or exploited would be cut off immediately and permanently. The Silvani Collective was the first to qualify. They had always been fair, and they passed every test. Full relations were established within a month. Others followed slowly. Each one had to prove itself. Each one had to earn trust through years of honest behavior. Some species did not try. They could not accept humans as equals. They held on to their pride and their old ways. Those species were left to deal with their problems alone. But many did try. They worked hard to meet humanity's standards. They treated human workers and diplomats with respect. They shared technology fairly. They kept their promises. And slowly, relationship by relationship, a new network began to form. It was not the old council. It was something different. Something based on equality instead of power. Something that treated every species, young or old, as worthy of respect. 1 year later, High Speaker Morath made a quiet request to visit Earth, not as a leader, not as a diplomat, just as a citizen who wanted to understand. His request was granted. He traveled alone in a small ship. At the border, human vessels escorted him just as they had escorted Vreth. He was taken to a city and given a room in a simple hotel. No guards, no ceremonies. He was just another visitor. He spent a week walking through human streets. He visited schools and hospitals and factories. He talked to ordinary people. He ate in their restaurants and sat in their parks. He saw what the galaxy had missed. Humans were not primitive. They were practical. They did not waste time on displays of power or status. They focused on things that mattered: health, education, family, community. Their buildings were not grand, but they were well made. Their cities were not beautiful in the way of ancient palaces, but they were clean and efficient and full of life. And everywhere he went, he saw creativity. New machines, new art, new ideas. Humans never stopped inventing. They never stopped trying to make things better. It was in their nature. Their short lives made every moment precious, so they used every moment well. On his last day, he walked through a park in the center of the city. Children were playing on the grass. Parents watched from benches. Birds sang in the trees. A small girl ran past him, chasing a ball. She stopped and looked up at him with curious eyes. She had never seen a Tellurian before. Morath did not know what to do. He had spent 60 years leading the council. He had made decisions that affected trillions of lives, but he had no idea how to talk to a human child. So he bent down and smiled. "Hello," he said. The girl smiled back. "Hello. You are very tall." "I am. And you are very small." She laughed. "I will be big soon. Mommy says I grow fast. I am sure you will. She picked up her ball and ran back to her friends. Morath watched her go. Such a simple moment. Such an ordinary thing. And yet it meant everything. He understood now. Humans were not a lesser species. They were not servants, or tools, or problems to be managed. They were people. They had children who played in parks, and laughed and dreamed of growing up. They had hopes and fears and loves, just like everyone else. The galaxy had been blind. They had looked at humans, and seen only what they wanted to see. Short lives, useful skills, cheap labor. They had never looked deeper. They had never tried to understand, and so they had lost something precious. Morath left Earth that evening. As his ship rose through the atmosphere, he looked back at the blue planet. One last time. He did not know if the galaxy could fix what it had broken. He did not know if humanity would ever fully trust them again. But he knew that they had to try. They had to keep trying. For as long as it took. Because the humans had taught them something important. They had taught them that dignity mattered. That respect mattered. That how you treated others defined who you were. The galaxy had failed that test for 200 years. Now it had a chance to do better. Morath settled into his seat and closed his eyes. It was time to go home and get to work. On Earth, President Suman received a message that Morath had departed safely. Outside her window, the sun was rising. A new day was beginning. Ships were leaving for the frontier colonies. Scientists were working on new inventions. Children were going to school. Humanity was building its future. It was a good future. A future based on equality and respect, and the simple idea that everyone deserved to be treated well. The galaxy could be part of that future. Or it could be left behind. The choice was not humanity's to make, but whatever the galaxy decided, humanity would keep building. They would keep creating. They would keep reaching for the stars, because that was what they did. That was who they were, and nobody would ever take that away from them again.